Good morning, Abundant Life Church. This is Pastor Chris. Today we're going to be looking at Romans chapter 11, verses 1 down through 10. Years ago, when I was in Oregon, I hired an associate pastor. It was a guy I'd known for years. His father was one of my teachers in college. He's now the senior pastor there. But here's the part of the story I want you to focus on. When I hired him and he was getting all set up, moved into his house, what have you, he asked me, what cable company should I use? I said, well, we use Dish TV. Well, a couple days later, he came back to me and he said he's all signed up with Dish TV. And because he's a new customer, they gave him a free year of the NFL package for free. I didn't get that. I'd been a customer of theirs for years. I never got the NFL package, never had it offered to me. And so I thought, well, I wonder if I could get that. No, I can't. Do you know why? I'm an existing customer. Apparently, what made me ineligible was the fact that I made all those monthly payments. Let me ask you this. How fair is that? Here I am, a valued customer on the outside looking in. Now, this complaint may be the very definition of a first world problem, but the same situation, the same principle is in this passage we're going to look at. One group of people which had had the inside track to God and had been with God for so long now seems to almost be on the outside looking in. And our question is, are they ineligible to come to God? Paul had been saying that the way of salvation is now open to the Gentiles. God isn't just for the Jews anymore. Okay. But is that the same thing as saying that the Jews are no longer eligible to come to God? Like how the Gentiles were not eligible before. And what about the promises God had made to the Jews? Did he take them all back? Is he going to break them? Or is he going to go through with them? If God brought in the Gentiles, does that mean that he turned his back on the Jews? With what Paul had been teaching, he knows that this question is eventually going to come up. Not only could Gentiles now come to God, but the whole church of Jesus was quickly becoming mostly Gentiles. Now it was the Jews who were not coming. Suddenly they were the ones on the outside looking in. So it'd be natural to wonder if God had completely changed directions and said, okay, before I didn't want the Gentiles, now I've changed my mind. I've decided now I don't want the Jews. Is that really what was going on? Did God give up on the Jews and make them ineligible to come? Paul thought, he had thought previously in his old life, that just being a Jew, I'm sorry, let me start over. Paul had thought and taught that being a Jew alone is not enough to save you. Okay. And in a church that's now mostly Gentiles, and with so many Jews turning their backs on Jesus, this question would naturally come up. It'd be natural to assume that because they had rejected Jesus, now God has decided that he would reject them. Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis were the most famous comedy act in the world back in about the 50s and 60s. They were also the best of friends. And then they had a falling out and they split up. And they were no longer welcome in each other's houses. John Lennon and Paul McCartney, the greatest songwriting duo of all time. Same thing happened to them. They had a nasty falling out. And now they were no longer welcome in each other's homes. Lots of divorces end up like this. Has God divorced the people he loved, and now they're no longer welcome in his house? Well, let's dive into the passage here. We're going to start with verse 1, if I can find it on my stupid phone that insists on continually turning off. There we go. Verse 1 says, I ask then, did God reject his people? There's the question that we've been posing all along. What's Paul's answer? By no means. I am an Israelite myself, a descendant of Abraham from the tribe of Benjamin. Paul's answer is a resounding no. He says, hey, you know what, guys? I'm a Jew myself. And I'm not just a Jew excuse me, I'm from the tribe of Benjamin. That was thought to be one of the more prestigious tribes. Paul is saying if anybody has the right to say, oh, I'm with God because of my Jewishness, it's me. I'm a Jew. The apostles were all Jews. The gospel writers, except for Luke, were Jews. Jesus was a Jew. No, the Jews are not ineligible to come to God. Of course not. But if they're not ineligible, if they can't come to God, then how do things work at this point? But before we even ask how things work at this point, we also have to remember and factor in that God also had made promises to these Jews that they were going to be his people. He was going to be their God. Is that promise still in effect? Or has something changed? God said, you will be my people. That was part of the covenant. Covenant is how God deals with man. Covenant is vitally important. It's never anything to be taken lightly. God's agreement with the Jews was that he would be their God. They would be his people. He would bless them. But they had to stay faithful to him. But when the vast majority of the Jews rejected the idea of Jesus as the Messiah, as the Son of God, it meant they were walking away from God. So if they backed out, it wasn't God backing out, it was them. Then why wouldn't God just wash his hands of all of them and say that they couldn't come now? So were these promises still in effect? I'll be your God, you be my people. I'll bless you. Was that promise still in effect? Tune in next time and we'll find out. Till then, have a great day.